Hey everybody, welcome to the Mr. Maple Show. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tim. And we greatly appreciate you watching today's video. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com. We put out tons of neat Japanese maples every single week, and you should definitely sign up for our weekly emails and check that out.
Hey guys, we've got some awesome content for you here today. I think it's going to be a commonly asked question, should I plant my Japanese maple in the fall? Now this is something we get asked all the time. It's a pretty common question here for Joe to be getting in an email. So we wanted to hop on here and give you a quick video about should I plant my Japanese maple in the fall?
Now, to be quite frank, you can plant a Japanese maple anytime.
Yeah.
But the fall is an excellent time to plant a Japanese maple.
Check out our video on when should I plant my Japanese maple, because we basically recommend any time of the year when the ground's not frozen. Now, Japanese maples are going to work excellent for fall plantings in zone 6 through zone 9. That's when we really recommend. It's one of the easiest times of the year to plant a Japanese maple. Again, you can plant it any time of the year when the ground's not frozen. I plant my Japanese maples when I have time to garden. But fall is an excellent time to plant Japanese maples. We're actually here in early September when we're shooting this video, and we're not quite in that fall conditions, but it's still a great time to be planting. Now, fall itself gives you an ideal condition because the trees are going to go through less transpiration. That foliage is starting to go dormant. There's going to be less moisture loss from the plant. So if the tree drops leaf and shuts down, you're going to be ready for next spring. And that's something that makes a lot of sense for that fall time frame.
And when you're planting during the fall, those roots start pushing out sometimes during those warm parts during the late winter to early spring, and really help it get established before it can get established so it can do very well during those summer months that following year.
Yeah, it's the easiest time of the year to plant. Fall, typically anytime from late September through almost December. So we're actually here in zone 6B in western North Carolina, and this is an excellent time of the year to plant for us. So some things to take into consideration when planting in the fall. Your tree may go dormant after planting. So Japanese maples are shutting down, they're getting more and more dormant, and they need that dormancy period. Japanese maples do not want to have continual in-leaf time frame. You can grow Japanese maples in a lot of places. One of the reasons they don't work in a heavy zone 10, especially in Florida zone 10, is that they don't go dormant. They actually need that dormancy period. It helps the Japanese maple strive and have its best colorations. So that dormancy period is essential. So what you don't want to do in the fall is create a false spring. You don't want to push your Japanese maple out of dormancy when planting. Therefore, we recommend not fertilizing at all during the fall months.
I think that's the biggest mistake people make when planting in the fall is fertilizing in the fall, because when you're fertilizing, you're causing that plant to push new growth. And when it's pushing new growth, that's something that's going to get damaged by that colder weather that's coming in the fall.
Yeah, we actually recommend zero fertilizer in the fall plantings. We recommend putting out fertilizer in mid to late March. We have a whole video on when to fertilize your Japanese maples as well. So during these fall months, the Japanese maples are starting to shut down. And as we've stated several times, don't fertilize during this time frame. We also don't recommend pruning your Japanese maples in the fall. You're going to have your best success pruning mid to late March at the same time when you fertilize. I often think of Buddy Lee. I was at one of his speeches. He was talking about the encore azaleas, and the same principles apply. It's the same thing I often tell people with Japanese maples. You only want to fertilize when you can prune, and you only want to prune when you can fertilize. So both those things are when you're making your tree more active. By pruning your Japanese maple going into the winter and the fall months, you can actually create a lot of activity going on. You're going to raise the sap level in your Japanese maple, and you may give it a false spring there. So it's another thing we don't want to be doing going into the fall. Now, can it be done? Yeah, I always like to quote Chris Rock. You can drive a car with your feet, but it don't make it a good idea. So it certainly can be done, but I don't recommend it. The best time to prune your Japanese maple for heavy pruning is going to be mid to late March. They're going to heal quicker during that time. By pruning in the fall, you can certainly push a Japanese maple to throw on lots of new growth, and you're wanting this thing to completely shut down. The last thing you want in the fall is new growth.
I totally remember when you did an interview with a magazine and they asked you all these different questions, and they're all saying Matt's the expert, here's all the stuff, and then in the article it says when to prune, fall. And
right beside my face.
Right beside Matt's face, and we were like, oh no.
But it looks like a quote by me, and I'm like, that's the opposite of what I always say.
One thing a lot of people, nurserymen, do too, is they say, well, we fertilize with a 0-10-10, and that may work in certain zones, warmer zones, where you can keep the roots active and growing and the top is dormant. But those are also the first plants that can get a lot of damage during the winter because the roots are very active, and a cold snap comes on, it only affects the top, but it affects the roots. So that's something to keep in consideration too. You know, some people may be able to get away with that in their zone, but we don't recommend it because cold snaps, which are unpredictable, can definitely set you back and really get you upset. Check out our video on what's a cold snap. We sort of go through and explain the difference between cold snaps and frosts. And that's something I definitely don't recommend, because the main thing you want to do with your Japanese maple is have it shut down naturally during the winter. And that even gives you better fall color.
Yeah, you're going to get better fall color if this tree's going through the natural progressions. So don't bring them into a sunroom. You don't want to be bringing your Japanese maple in an area where it's getting unnatural heat for that time of the year. You don't need to be giving it acclimation. You don't want to be pushing any new growth. So you want that tree shutting down, getting some cooler night temperatures. Often that fall color is going to be better if you're having cooler root temperatures in the fall. So you want to be starting that dormancy at the right time and kind of mimicking, especially if you have it in containers where you can manipulate stuff, you want to be mimicking what's going on with your outdoor location so that you're shutting it down at a normal progression with the plants that are in your regular setting.
And I think this is something we run into all the time. I mean, you run into people who are doing this and growing Japanese maples, and they bring them inside, they set them inside their porch, right in their sunroom, enjoy them, and then the plant's got all this new growth on it because it had that extra heat. And then you pull it outside, and then you get those frosts that are here in the fall, and you get damage on your new growth. When if it's hardened off, if those branches are hardened off and it gets cold weather, the leaves turn to some nice fall color or drop their leaves, and there's no damage to the actual branches of the plant.
Yeah, we ship all over the United States, so we get this a lot. People will get a Japanese maple, sometimes in a cooler or warmer zone, and they'll say, I just wanted to enjoy that foliage a little bit longer, so they brought it into a window seal. Now, the danger there is that that tree is going to need that dormancy, and you're going to be taking that tree into a dormancy at a much harsher time frame in the winter. So you may be taking that tree back out to its more natural environment in December, and things may be a lot more, difficult for the tree to go through those stages of dormancy. At that stage, you may already be a lot cooler, so that new growth is going to get way more heavily burned. You're at a much higher chance of damaging next year's fresh buds by doing that. So we recommend creating a normal dormancy with your natural time frame with your Japanese maple outdoors. Like we said, it's a great time to be planting. Now, when you are planting, check out my video about early leaf drop. I just recently did one, and Tim did a video about drying out. Both those help explain a lot of that. But a lot of times when you're planting, especially in this early fall time frame, smaller Japanese maples may go into an early dormancy. They may drop leaf. They may completely drop all their foliage. Now, if you're seeing healthy buds, that's perfectly normal. That's going to be your fresh foliage for next year. Especially on smaller plants, they can go into an early dormancy just being in 1 gallons, and just simply shaking one once it's already started into fall color, they're going to drop leaf completely. You've disturbed that leaf, and that's perfectly normal for that leaf to go ahead and fall off. Oftentimes they'll fall off in shipment for us this time of the year.
Yeah, and if a plant is in good fall color and even a heavy rain comes through, it can knock off the leaves. I mean, during this time of the season, leaf drop is very, very common. It's something that's very natural, and it happens on Japanese maples, but as long as you've got those healthy branches, that's what matters. And if you have your plant over-fertilized and you see that it's not going to good fall color, you see that the plant is not shutting down, that's where you're going to have issues with that plant during the winter. That's exactly what we don't want to do going into the fall. We want a plant that's shutting down, going through the natural phases like it does outside naturally, because these plants already know how to handle the cold weather.
We've visited Japan several times in the fall and studied Japanese maples in their natural habitat. And even in a forest, you'll see some trees that are already going dormant way earlier than others in the same similar settings, very similar style trees that are going dormant at different times. That's not uncommon, so don't be scared or freak out if your Japanese maple is going dormant early. That's perfectly natural. You know, it may have to do with the size of the root ball versus how much moisture. There's so many different factors there. I said it in our other video, but 2 trees under the same watering system, one will go dormant completely early and the other will stay in leaf. So, not something to be very worried about. The main thing there is that you have healthy buds. You'll see those bud formation going on your Japanese maple. And if you have healthy buds, get ready for next year and get ready to enjoy it. You've actually just shut your tree down and prepared it for winter early, which is nothing wrong with that at all. But don't break that dormancy and encourage that tree to continue to stay dormant throughout the winter months.
Now, the other thing that we see a lot during the fall months is powdery mildew. And this can be based on having wet conditions going into the fall, which many people have those conditions going into the fall. Those cooler temperatures is perfect for that fungus powdery mildew to spread. We've got a whole video on powdery mildew, what to do and what not to do. I'm going to give you the short rundown right now. Go check out the full video. With powdery mildew, don't overreact. It's an environmental condition. powdery mildew just affects the leaf right now, so it's more of an aesthetic thing. And that leaf's going to drop off, and then next spring when it leaves out, you're not going to have powdery mildew.
Yeah, it depends on a little bit how late it is into the season too, whether I recommend treating. You know, sometimes Tim's video was talking about how to treat for that. As we get later into fall, personally, I don't treat it. It's already going into dormancy. It's very similar to what I was talking about planting a tree and it drying out. You've got healthy buds there behind it. I try to keep things to a minimal amount for chemicals and what we can do. So if we're already going dormant, hey, no reason to carry a false dormancy there. If your tree's going dormant from powdery mildew and it's later in the season, go ahead and let it go dormant completely. You're going to have your best success for next spring that way.
I hope these tips on growing Japanese maples for the fall and what you should do really helps you understand what you should be doing this fall and future falls with your Japanese maples.
Hey guys, we greatly appreciate you checking in with us. Like, subscribe, share, all those things help us out so much. You know, it's one small click for you, but it means a lot to us. So we really appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe. Sign up for our weekly emails on Mr. Maple. There's always new stuff coming. That doesn't end in the fall and the winter. We keep turning out new, interesting plants all year long here at Mr. Maple. So you're going to want to be a part of that. And hey, we thanks so much for watching.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.